Hi, I'm Tony Lawrence. I'm the studio head of 2K Australia.
I'm Matt Armstrong. I'm the franchise director of Borderlands.
It's kind of self-explanatory. Come on, think about it. No, look, I guess it was one of those things that when we were thinking about what we could name this, all kinds of ideas were put out there. But fundamentally, it's a sequel to Borderlands because it happens between Borderlands and Borderlands 2. So it was a sequel to Borderlands. It's a prequel to Borderlands 2. It's the pre-sequel! It really affects the playstyle. Like I said, the verticality is there. There's low gravity, so you can jump high. You can jump really high. Now that means we had to look at our levels in a different kind of way to make that really fun to play. And even the encounters that we have in there are crafted to some extent to low gravity and being able to jump high really caters to that. To the extent where you don't have to sit back and just shoot things or look for cover. In fact, we encourage you not to look for cover and get right in there by jumping from the top and straight into it. So it adds something, a completely new element to the gameplay.
Yeah, since you played it, you saw it's really accessible, and I'm sure you found yourself jumping and bursting and slamming really, really quickly and easily. But you'll also notice that you have a surprising amount of air control, especially after you fire after burst. And there's Oz kits that improve your air control and give you other sort of benefits that make it last longer, burst you even further. So you start reaching a point within just a few hours of play when you start pulling off some really remarkable maneuvers. You start feeling like you're a fighter pilot as much as a player, where you're just flying over the battlefield, shooting the guys and landing on the other side and bouncing around. Going into combat, somebody knocks you back, you burst back forward and land at their feet and slam them so that you do more damage to them than they did to you. And then when it gets dangerous, you go flying backwards and screw off back behind some cover and then burst over the top and slam them again. It's really, really different than any other Borderlands game. But wonderfully, it's really, really Borderlands. It doesn't feel like you're playing a different game. It's just a whole new level of it.
I guess that comes from the story we're trying to tell here, and we wanted to tell the story of Handsome Jack. So it was really important to look at what Handsome Jack was doing, and once we started thinking of who would be around for Handsome Jack's story, some of the characters just stood out. I mean, we've got some relationships set up in Borderlands 2, particularly, say, Nisha and Claptrap and Wilhelm. So those characters stood out immediately. And I guess another part of the story is how Handsome Jack wants to be a hero. He sees himself as saving the moon. And who else, what kind of other character would do that? And we're interested in really looking at Athena from that kind of point where she has been bad in the past. She's been an assassin. Now she's looking for something else to do to try and be good. And that kind of fitted with Jack's story. I mean, how far will she go? Jack's journey.
She joined an organization. She joined the Atlas organization, trying to be noble, becomes an assassin, an elite assassin, and they become more corrupt and dark, and she goes down that path. So she had a great parallel to the story of Handsome Jack. Not to get too deep into spoilers for what happens in Borderlands 2, but she has a great parallel and understanding of, I'm trying really hard to not go down that path again. I'm trying to be the good guy. I've been the bad guy for so long. I want to be the good guy. And letting her look at this through those eyes was sort of interesting. Each one of the different characters looks at Handsome Jack's trajectory with a very different attitude. Nisha's a bad girl. She's wicked evil from the start, and when she sees him turning bad, she's having more fun, and she's really digging him and his attitude. Claptrap's just trapped, and he doesn't really have a choice, and he feels like sort of held against his will here. I don't have any choices. My programming is forcing me to go along with this. And then Wilhelm's kind of a total mercenary, just there for the money. And he's finding himself sort of like, this is really profitable. You're doing some really dark things, but it's working. And so each one of the characters has a different attitude, and they all have their own trajectories through the game.
Tip number 4, be on the lookout for new loot. We got new guns, new grenades, and hey, remember that slam I mentioned before? If you get the right kind of Oz kit, you can modify that slam with elemental damage. Imagine butt slapping someone so hard they explode in acid. Just think about that for a second.
At the heart of it, Claptrap's a screw up. He's a failure, he's a screw up, he gets things wrong, nobody likes him, he's annoying. He only has one friend in the world, and that's the player. And we thought, well, if Claptrap's a player character, how do we embrace this since that this guy's kind of a mess up? He kind of screws up all the time. He fails upwards. You know, he is the Peter principle alive. And we sort of spent some time in Australia, like talking together, figuring out what is the solution to this. And we came to the idea that, well, what if he has a program that analyzes the situation and then does what he thinks is appropriate? And when he does it right, he's super badass. He can be the most powerful, awesome dude on the whole battlefield. But when he does it wrong, it's like everybody rolls their eyes going, oh God, Claptrap. Which is the attitude that all the characters in the game have to Claptrap. And even when he does something wrong, there's like opportunity for you to take advantage of it and benefit from it. So a lot of his skills affect the other players, and they could be very frustrating for you, depending on what you're doing, and they could be fantastic boons of opportunity. If you work with him, and if you sort of embrace Claptrap for the wild card he is, the chaos bomb in the battlefield that he is, you can have a really satisfying and enjoyable experience.
Tip number 6, cryo weapons are awesome. If you freeze somebody and then punch them or blast them, they'll shatter, and that will be hilarious. Listen real close when their body explodes into a bunch of little crystals and you can actually hear their family cry.
Well, the trailer, you see Moxie dancing in the trailer. There is a point early on in Borderlands where Moxie was dating Handsome Jack. And this takes place right after that time, where they just split up. And while she was dating him, he was spending all his time in the space station by the moon, so she's sort of hanging out there. And she does have a few people who are coming to visit her. I think people may have noticed in the trailer, a couple of old friends turned up. They're visiting Moxie on the moon, taking a bit of a vacation, because there's no impending threat to the universe that needs to be defended against. Mostly they're new characters, and they're very new, true to Borderlands kind of characters. We've seen hints of Janie Springs, who's a really strong, interesting kind of new character, and some other new characters that come along and bring some new flavor to the world. It's always good to meet new people in Borderlands.
Well, yeah, of course there's going to be more guns. We invented a whole new class of guns, that being the laser weapons. So, you know, we went to the moon, it was a whole heap of promises that we had to keep. And you can't go to the moon without having laser guns. So, we did.
Tip number 5, lasers. They're pretty cool. Look, that guy's on fire. That's funny.
I mean,
Bazillion?
yeah, a bazillion gazillion?
There's a lot of laser guns. They do a lot of really strange, wacky things. All those like fantasies of what this laser gun's awesome, this laser gun's awesome. We try to capture all those possibilities in there. So, and each manufacturer treats each weapon differently. Well, each one of them also treats laser guns differently. So a Molly 1 laser gun is very different than a Doll laser gun. It's very, very different than another manufacturer's laser gun.
October 17th.
17th in Europe.
Tip number 2, don't forget the power of the slam. Just crouch in the air and you'll plummet toward the ground like a meteor made of badass and love. Do it when you're above an enemy and they'll friggin' feel it.
Xbox 360, PS3 and PC.